You sometimes feel like this was the problem with Ancelotti. The fact that he was a player's manager who let the players do their thing and gave them a free hand. For all the talk about how the 3-4-2-1 formation worked magic for Alonso at Leverkusen, it didn't mean that was the only tactical setup he lived by. He used the 3-4-3, or its variant, the 3-4-2-1, 27 times this season. But he set his team up in a 3-5-2 system 8 times. He used the 4-2-3-1 5 times this season, the 4-4-2 and 4-5-1 in 3 games, the 4-4-1-1 in 2 games as well. So there is a big possibility, in fact, that Alonso might end up coming with a custom tactic he built specifically for this Real Madrid team. That finds a way to fit in the excess midfielders they've got, get the wingers of the team into the system as well. There's been a lot of talk that despite his incredible start to life as a manager with Leverkusen, Xabi Alonso might be relatively inexperienced coaching a club like Real Madrid. In that regard, while there is some degree of truth in this statement, it's also worth pointing out that just 11 years back, Alonso himself was a player in this same environment.
Hello everybody, I just got back from the FA Cup final. If you check out my Instagram, you'll understand what's going on.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Adam Cleary Football Channel. I am, by extension, Adam Cleary, and if you are a Crystal Palace fan, which statistically you probably are if you clicked on this, you don't need an introduction, do you? So, and yeah, we finally got all the new assets and the new graphics. Anyway, first, we got something in this game of football we have not seen in the English game for absolutely years. Completely deranged, out of pocket, in his own head, Pep Guardiola, cup final starting 11. No defensive midfielder, nobody who can really sit, nobody who can compete physically with what Crystal Palace have. This is a man visibly traumatised by the fact he should have been 3-0 down in the game at the Etihad. So, not wanting to end up in that exact same situation again, he devised this plan to stop it, and, spoiler for the thrust of the entire video, ended up in that exact same situation again. So I'm going to show you what Pep Guardiola thought he was doing with this system, and why it just made no difference whatsoever to Ole Glasner's Crystal Palace. Now, because it's impossible to tell the story of this game without first telling the story of the fly to the Etihad. Palace were excellent in the opening stages of that game because of the width that their wing backs allowed them to create. Now, Palace fans, you've seen this a million times this season. They're so aggressive with the wing backs, in particular, Rudiger stretches out the back forward in particular, gives Ede far from making 10 rolls, low space will need half space in pockets to work in. And the opening goal in that other game is this exact formula. They stretch out on the right hand side here, the back four loses the line, trying to poke down the ball goes out there. Quick ball in Saar running that power, and because Eze started absolutely miles offside, he's not involved in that part of the build-up, they practiced this. Easiest tap-in he's ever going to get in life. But what should have been the third is really similar, except this time it's in a transition, so Man City have given them that space rather than them creating that space. The principles are all exactly the same. They're still attacking that exact area down the side of the fullback. Guardiola decided his best bet to stop that happening in the cup final with his use of this man here, Nico O'Reilly. If we look at his heat map from the league game, you will see providing a lot of width all the way up and down the left-hand side, touching the touchline a lot. He was basically, as the rest of the team shuffled over, was playing this entire left of the field. Next. Obviously, Palace had all this space in behind him to attack. But here, and I'll show you see after the final, the plan was to convert him instead. De Bruyne and Silva kind of shuffled over, made a little bit of room for him, and he paid a lot more in this area of the pitch. And he's still able to provide width and get back and defend wide, but you've got Doku being the one to attack this left-hand space. He can now cover over into this area a lot better than anybody else could in the other game. But Doku there, the other side, you can see here in the early minutes, they were both on the touchline trying to stretch Crystal Palace out themselves, but more importantly, because they're so wide, occupying both the wing backs. And you had Demolich playing alongside Haaland, who was almost like a conventional big man, little man, centre forward pairing, but behind this four, you had something almost see. It was honestly, at times, deliberately a lopsided 3-3. The defenders didn't necessarily shuffle all the way across to get in behind the space that O'Reilly had left. Likewise, neither did this new line of midfielders who come along to sort of be more central. And that's actually, like, in theory, a really, really good decision. Like, I'm sure Crystal Palace's average position across the 90 minutes won't shock you to watch, of course. But Munoz is a far bigger attacking threat than Mitchell is on the other side. The defender in the Premier League were created the most chances this season. So by doing this, you leave O'Reilly a lot further over to cover the space and got you from an attacking perspective. Kevin De Bruyne also thrives in the pass play. You don't need him behind Savino in the protecting that space will get to the overlap. You have him sitting more in this area by shuffling through from. And then, like, naturally, because you're lopsided over this side, more protected over here, you can sort of leave that and then sort of cover the area that De Bruyne is not defending over here. So it did look mad at times, and it didn't do it all the time, but it was a good idea. And it then worked really early on. Like, because Mitchell is the left back of the two wing backs, you want to play in front of him, not face in behind. De Bruyne gets the ball in that area exactly where you want to be, and he picks out Haaland to the back post. And were it not for a great save from Henderson, was a bit of a theme in this game. That's it, you want to look. This is a masterstroke. So yeah, I mean, what an idea there. Pep Guardiola, super genius, but small downside. It does mean when you're defending, this is sort of the shape you have. Now, I have one leg, no knees, and a dodgy heart, and I think even I, in this situation, could potentially get Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne on a quick break. They got a warning really early on, sprinting through the middle where Gonzalez, Kovacic, Lewis, dare I say it, Rodri would have been positioned, but they did not learn, and then minutes later, Palace got the goal, wins the whole game. Palace got on from the back, which we are going to talk about in just a second, and nobody in the area this ball lands can compete with Teta in there. They are not as strong as he is, and more importantly, they are not as determined as he is. Managed to take that ball and hold it up. He was great at that side of the pitch, as you knew he was going to do. Pep, he feeds him in, and there you go. So somehow, incredibly, in the first 30 minutes of this cup final, simultaneously got Pep Guardiola inventing a system that is working exactly as he thought it would, and Oliver Glasner still able to exploit it exactly the way he would have exploited any other system. Because for all I genuinely think this is a really clever setup for Pep Guardiola. It's like Crane didn't pull out, it was a good idea. It still does nothing to negate exactly what Crystal Palace was always going to try and do. Let's go back to the very start of the goal. They have got committed off the pitch in numbers, and they know if they can then release Munoz into the space and we are leaving them by being this aggressive, he will find one of the number 10 arriving into the box. Thus meaning in some kind of beautifully twisted logic that Pep Guardiola was so keen to avoid conceding this kind of goal, he then went and conceded exactly this hit of goal. Of course, just like so stupid sometimes. We just get rid of Man City and replace them with Crystal Palace. I've got no idea how much you bothered to animate some of this today, by the way. I'm recording it immediately after the cup final. This is my Saturday night. But I'm editing it right after I've run the Hacking House. God knows what they're doing. Anyway, we're going to Crystal Palace here. They were showing you all passes out from the back of these two centre-backs. It would have been David Goldman, barely did. They couldn't do anything on the ball. What do you notice? There's a couple of little dippy-dappies here with the guards at the back and they're trying to work out whose goal it is to go long. But by and large, all of these are going extremely long, either into this area here for Mateta or into this area here for Munoz. I could say Munoz as well. Or to this area here for Munoz. I could say Munoz as well, with real emphasis on the end. Now, the light that's right. Munoz. Munoz, is it? Now it's even more obvious when you've been the centre-back up and just look at Dean Henderson. Like, on-day Premier League goalkeepers Palace have left and right here to try and prove an opposition press around. No interest in that whatsoever. He knew exactly where he was trying to land that ball. Every time that back man piled up, and that is what Crystal Palace got to do. And for our system, especially when you deploy it against a team like Manchester City, it's not going to work a lot. Like the all seen the start, like right before the goal. 1-7 the ball, 8-3. But it is one of those systems, but when it does work, it's going to create you a situation like this, which is infinitely better than the whole of like 9 or 10 players you're going to go up against if you've got 83% of the ball. Anyway, to get in 1-0 at half time of this, Pep Guardiola has got 15 minutes of this genius mastery stroke final pick, this resolute defence. Genuinely, all he seemed to come up with for the first 30 minutes was, I would argue, equally as blunt and direct as this. Doku and Savino are Scotland here. They went from attempting in the wing back successfully, in my opinion, going around them, desperately trying to get crosses stood up flat into the box. This is combined with all the crossing they did in the first 45 minutes. Not really a lot there, and this all the crossing they did in the second 45 minutes. If you weren't paying close attention, if you were bagging nerves or you were far, or something, I can tell you, all but like 2 or 3 of these are from the 45 to 2 minutes kick. Clearly an instruction to the changing room, and it went out, did it? Now, I'm not a coach. Yet, I would argue devising a master plan whereby you're hanging up flat crosses into a box that potentially have 5 defenders in it, and all you've got, maybe not that, but all you've got is 1 early Haaland. Problematic result would be my assessment. Unsurprisingly, there's 5 of them, the 3 big centre-backs they've got in there, obviously, in particular, gobbled that up very easily. In fact, it's racing aerial swing the threat of like the okay, now, part of me thinks maybe it was a little big in the ribs at Arsenal, but I think they are due, but he did say he put Palace the best set-piece team in the Premier League. Or words that mean that exact thing that are the correct quote. I didn't look it up. And instead, complimented skill set was the thing that nearly got them to look. That goes a long throw, which is a set piece, by the way. It's slung in. Palace compete better for the ball in the breakaway. So nearly get that goal. Wind it back a bit, like before the throw in, that comes from just a weird heads not screwed on right mix up City get themselves into. And I think that is good to the captain all that stuff is something very important to look at. Like stuff like this was just the indecisive half-arsed vibe that Man City had throughout the entire game. Despite all the possession being so weak in the favour, Palace were fighting for absolutely everything and it felt like they were winning an awful lot more than City. I actually think very little will surmise Crystal Palace approach to this game. Quite like this, my favourite ever on the track of steel, which is every single defensive action Crystal Palace made in the entire 90 minutes. It is blocked, it is reception, it is tackle, it is headed, seriously, it is ball recovery. Look at where these are focused. City can have as much ball as they want. Here, and even in some of these areas here, even a little bit around the side, but as soon as they pose any threat to this Crystal Palace area, every single player, bodies on the line, being tackle, being brave, being giving themselves the right to then try and play their kind of football. And it's total cliche in that expression to put yourself the right to play, but it's what it takes to go into an FA Cup final against a side like Manchester City. I'm thinking first trophy in the history of your club ever, because there are going to be moments where that quality helps just finally yield chances, and you've got to be in a position and mentally ready to make that block. Maybe it's too late, maybe you can't get there, but maybe, just like the Nico O'Reilly chance later on, maybe they give you that opportunity to make that block. And you're only going to do it if you try to do it. A lot of teams would be like, oh no, we've been played through, I guess they score. Not one single player in the team was prepared to accept a moment like that. Even in the very, very last minutes of this game, the ball breaks in the box.
When we were little, we discovered how much fun it is to move. But then,
Ball breaks in the box, and you've got two players, you've got three players throwing themselves in the line of these shots in the hope that maybe they'll get blocked into that. They gave Manchester City absolutely. And when that didn't work, when Man City just created something instead of being given it, you had Dean Henderson, Dino Zoff, which he caught on Twitter, the save, the penalty claims. I'm obsessed with this. Absolutely incredible. And shouldn't he have been on the pitch in the first place? No. No, of course it shouldn't have been. Goalkeepers union here, and even I was like, well, that's alright. But I thought it was going insane, actually, the way people were like, well, you know, ball away from the goal. I was like, well, yeah, it's what's going that way, because he hit with his hand that way, in that direction. I thought, but who cares? I thought that Man City penalty was a dive by David Silva. They got that, so it all balanced out in the end. In my opinion, and just if you're going to make those sorts of saves and that sort of contribution in a cup final, again, wearing a hat, I think you deserve the entire world. Granted, not my most scientific opinion as I've had on this channel, but I was just really happy for him. So yeah, this video doesn't need to be like 25 minutes long. Incredibly sort of simple premise. Oliver Glasner got the Crystal Palace formula absolutely bang on in this game. There was nothing nice to really do about it, and they got their share of the look when they needed it, and they made their own look when they did. It's a classic sort of underdog cup final perform. Like I can stand here for as long as you want, talking about the tactical side of it, the structure, both the tactics, everything in this game, interpretation, body language, it was all screaming from the very first minute that Crystal Palace wanted this for Man City and were going to get it. But if I may be clear, there was one final point to rewind, like 20 seconds, counting that word that everybody's using, including me just there. Upset. I don't think this game here, when you actually think about it, is an upset, really. Like, you would make, based on like the club finances and the fact of the squad, you make Crystal Palace underdogs, sure, the result. I don't think so. And that is because, and this was talking about Bill and the commentary, right? Palace, start this 13 games just to do the say, like, system a different time. You would argue they never got Oliver Glasner sacked. But if you take just 1 minute to look at the Premier League table since those first 13 games, so after they got their heads around all these changes, just look at which two teams are right next to each other. 42 and 41 points. 12 wins for City to 11 wins for Palace. Lost 1 game less in that match. Season ish. The Man City have. They had every right to go into this game showing no fear, believing they would win. I don't ever want to hear the word upset out this cup final, right? Crystal Palace are just plans. And that's it, that's the whole video. There's somebody else who probably would never see his team win a trophy and got to this year. This is brilliant. I absolutely loved this game of football, and I loved this result for the team, for the fans, but is in particular, like, it's what makes football worth watching on occasion. And I think that's the first time I've ever done a video on Crystal Palace, so I'm
will be the most popular MMORPG in 2025. So hurry and download off this
right. Hello there, everybody. I'm ACFC, and technically, it's leaving Liverpool. Bye.